Hey, everybody, and welcome to And Action Filmmaking Podcast. I'm Tommy DeNucci, as always, here with Mikey Messier. And we're a couple minutes late. We had a couple of little technical difficulties, but we got it all ironed out for the most part. And we're ready to dive in. I missed y'all. We weren't here last week because we were prepping for the film camp. And Mikey had a few other engagements as well. But we're back at it, and we're excited to dive in. Mikey, before I get into topic talk, how the hell are you?
Well, I'm doing good, Tommy. Things are okay here in sunny Florida. I was poolside just a few minutes ago. I've been working on my wonderful artwork in preparation for a big fall festival art display in a few weeks. And things are okay, pal. Things are good. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. We had what I can only describe as a very successful film camp on Saturday.
Yeah.
I got a chance to see Stephen E in person and actually meet this wonderful person. What a great guy Stephen E is. I was so happy to finally meet him. And the internet's a funny thing because I'm not saying I thought Stephen E was a short guy by any means, but I met him in person. He's a towering, strapping man. He's well over the 6 footer range, and I was like, "Wow, you're a lot bigger than you are on the internet." And he goes, "I thought you'd be a lot bigger than you are off the internet or something like that." But it was so funny. It was cool to see Steven, and I want to thank him personally for coming out and making the trek all the way from Connecticut to come to my film camp. I want to give a special shout out to Kim Kaling. She couldn't make it. She wasn't feeling well. So, Kim, we hope that you're on the road to recovery and doing better. We missed you there. Yeah, Steven checks in. He's a solid 6'1", and I think he's even being generous. He might be in that 6'1.5", 6'2" range. But Kim, it's good to see you. I hope you're feeling better. I want to give a shout out to Ariana Pacheco, who uh, really helped me out. So funny, the best laid plans of mice and men. I had everything laid out, ready to go. I packed my car. I'm all good to go. And the most crucial detail, my note cards, as which, that's obviously like my entire talk. I leave those on my kitchen table. Luckily,
Mm.
Ariana only lives like a couple blocks from me and she hadn't left yet. So she did the old Mission Impossible rescue mission and cracked into the house and got the cards. And all was well. So I appreciate that. Shout out to Mike Braga, my assistant, who recorded it. Here's the cool thing, guys. If you missed this film camp, I had a lot of people reach out and say, "Oh, I missed this film camp, and I really want to do the next one. When are you doing the next one?" The reality is, guys, I never say never, but I don't have a next film camp planned. That was something that I wanted to do, really like in the moment to kind of get people excited. I felt as though spirits were kind of down because of the state of the strike. So I said, let's do this film camp. And now here we are. It looks like the strikes are coming to an end. So I don't have a next one ready to go. However, missed out on this current film camp, or you just want to watch it again and take notes and do whatever, it will be available streaming behind a paywall. It's going to be a very affordable price. We haven't come up with a price point just yet, but you will be able to check out the entire film camp streaming online. So yeah, I appreciate that, and Mike, I appreciate you for giving me a lot of pointers from afar, helping me prep for this film camp. So big win, man. I got to say, rarely does an event go almost perfectly without a hitch, and this really was a case where totally headache free. The people at the Odeum Theater were terrific. I can't thank them all enough. Amanda over at the Greenwich Odeum, wonderful person. So we had a blast, and I got some great feedback, Mike. So I'm riding high this week.
Well, that's great. I did hear through the grapevine a very positive response. Our mutual friend David Gear, who I believe introduced you at the film camp, he kept me posted with video clips and some still photographs, and he was very enthusiastic and said you killed it in a positive way. And from what I saw, the attendance was really nice. And I think, like you said, Tommy, you had really good timing with this because you were thinking of this when that strike, both strikes were at their peak. And luckily, there's been, I believe the writers have come to a full agreement. And most likely that is good news for the SAG-AFTRA coming to an agreement with the producers. And everyone will,
Thank the Lord.
yeah, it's been tough for everybody, Tommy. And I think but you know what? I will say this, and I had some middling thoughts on the whole strike thing, but I think in the long run, especially with this whole AI stuff about reproducing scripts and stuff like that. I think that this is for the benefit of everyone. And, we're all people, whether you're a producer, a director, a writer, a background actor, an actor, whatever. You're all a human being that are of value to the film industry and the television industry and web series and everything. So why not work together? And sometimes things can seem like people are always at odds, when they're trying to split up a pie and there's only so many slices or who gets the biggest slice. But there's plenty for everyone if you really think about it, because people love to watch films, they love to watch TV, they love to binge watch stuff. So we
They do.
really are really happy that people are coming to these agreements, and shout out to all the Angela Lymans of the world who are on the front lines of these strikes. And any other thoughts on the strike situation coming to an end, Tommy?
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably talk more about that as we progress throughout. I'm frankly tired of it. I'm done talking about the strike. It's just, I'm over it. I guess the last thing that I'll say about the strike is, like you said, time is a funny thing, the passage of time. And we've been on strike now for whatever it is, 4 or 5 months. And in reality, in the grand scheme of things, that's a pebble of sand on a massive fucking beach of time. 5 months is nothing. So it seemed like this very dismal, dark stretch, but in reality, we're only talking about a few months. And if a few months worth of strife can potentially right the ship for what could be a few decades of horse shit, where we're getting our ideas stolen by fucking robots, then I guess that's the price we had to pay. So all is well. Now let's move the fuck on. I'm done talking about it. So guys, today, we wanted to talk about something sort of timely, something sort of seasonal. I don't know about you, Mikey, but fall is my favorite time of year. I love the fall. I love Halloween. I love football. I love the crisp, cold air. I love the leaves are changing. And I especially love horror movies. So Mike and I chatted a little bit. We're looking at topics. And we said, you know what? We haven't done a deep dive on the horror movie icon, a man who's been terrorizing the big screen for decades. And that is Tony Todd, a.k.a. the Candyman. Don't say it 3 times in the mirror, he will appear. We're gonna keep our Candyman phrases singular. Larry, you're really cruising for a bruising right now. Larry's getting out of control, guys. I have to let him out, otherwise he's gonna complain the whole time. Mike, tell us a little bit about Candyman while I let this stark raving lunatic cat out the door.
I believe the original Candyman film came out in 1992, and the Tony Todd, our featured topic today, was the lead. And by my memory, I could be wrong, but believe one of the first, if not the very first, African American actors to portray kind of the main, bad guy, like in the tradition of a Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger. I believe Tony played Candyman, and really, as far as the mainstream horror, franchises, I believe one of the first, if not the first, African American actors to play something like that. And Candyman's a scary guy. I mean, this is the very first Candyman, and I think even the reboots and the sequels have all, by my opinion, Tommy, had a very serious tone. They haven't gone the way of, say, something like, some of the Nightmare on Elm Streets have kind of veered into dark comedy, or dad jokes with Freddy Krueger. I think Jason Voorhees goes to space in one of them. I mean, some of those top horror franchises have kind of gone off the rails because they make so many sequels that they just kind of go goofy with them. I don't think Candyman has ever sold out its integrity. There was a reboot with Jordan Peele directing a few years ago that I saw, and for my money, buddy, Candyman is a horror franchise, and Tony Todd, that have always stuck to the integrity of the story, a dark story, a serious story, morbid and timely. And I give credit to, I believe it was Virginia Madsen was in the first one as the female lead, but Tony was excellent, and the whole Candyman franchise is very interesting. One real quick thing, Tommy, it's kind of one of these Mandela effect phenomenons. You said 3 times for Candyman. If you look it up, now it's 5 times, which
Oh,
seems
it's
odd.
5 times.
Well, it's
Well,
a
no,
man,
that makes sense. That makes sense. Because three is
Tommy.
like you could accidentally do three. Five, it's like you really got to fucking mean it.
I always believed it was 3, but if you look into it now, it says 5. It's one of those Mandela effects of, things changing apparently, but that's a whole other topic for other YouTube channels. But to me, it was always 3, but apparently now it's 5. So whether it's 3 or 5, you don't want to mess with the Candyman.
It's probably best to just not fucking say it at all in the mirror. Rule of
Yeah.
thumb. Yeah, Mike, you made a lot of great points. Of course, very progressive character, very progressive casting choice with Tony Todd there. And this movie's just terrific because there's a lot of amazing practical effects, and if you're just listening to this as a casual fan and you're not quite sure what a practical effect is, a practical effect is when a special effects team or artist uh, utilizes actual real life movie magic to make a special effect happen right before your eyes without the usage of any computers, no CGI, no bullshit. They're actually doing, like when you see the blood fire out, it's actually a mechanism that makes this happen or whatever it may be. And I seem to remember, and remember, we're not going to spend too much time on Candyman because this is a Tony Todd show, but I remember a lot of bee action in that movie, like real live bees. I'm pretty sure there's like this scene where there's just like bees just like engulfing his face, Tony's face. So pretty interesting stuff. That must have been one of those roles that you really have to kind of uh, be committed because some people are just horrified of bees, especially if you're allergic. Obviously, Tony's not allergic. He's got them all over his body. But even if you're not allergic, I think bees just kind of, you could probably put it in a category of just one of those things that people are afraid of. Like some people are afraid of water, some people are afraid of spiders, some people are afraid of bees. So this was a cool movie to kind of focus on that a little bit. Um, but let's move on from Candyman and talk a little bit about, just real quick, Tony's kind of humble beginnings working as a theater actor in my hometown, Providence, Rhode Island, at Trinity Rep. Pretty cool. Tony Todd went to, I believe he went to Brown University, and I think he was part of the Brown University Conservatory of Actors. And I want to say in the late 70s, he was at Brown right in Providence, Rhode Island, and eventually ended up at Trinity Rep. If you're from New England, you might be familiar with Trinity Rep. It's by far one of the best, if not the best, regional theaters in New England. They're kind of known as this little beacon of art and entertainment right in Providence, Rhode Island, right in downtown Providence. A lot of amazing talent has come out of Trinity over the years. Richard Jenkins, famous actor, aka Dick Jenkins, was a famous Trinity actor before he, or I should say, was a Trinity player before he became a famous actor. A lot of other talent came out of there, but Tony's one of them. He's definitely on a list of, I would say, certainly most successful, legitimate mainstream actors to come out of this camp, so to speak. So pretty cool that Tony Todd had some Rhode Island beginnings. And I got a chance to work with him on my very second movie, not quite my first movie, but any filmmaker will tell you that, much like an athlete, year one to year two, from your rookie year to your second year, you learn a little bit, but you're still pretty much a rookie. You still kind of, you got one movie under your belt. So my experience level was still kind of very much in the early stages of the game, and I wrote this really fun script about basically a bunch of zombies that end up terrorizing a small police department in a quiet little town, and it's basically cops versus zombies kind of a deal. And I had this character for basically the second or third act foil to the zombies, which would be this kind of a badass grizzled SWAT commander that Tony Todd eventually ended up playing. Now, guys, we've talked about this formula before, and if you were at my film camp, you know all about this. But a lot of these horror movies, what you try to do is you try to cast a bunch of really great actors around like one big name that you can bring in for like a couple days, 2, 3 days, because that's all you can afford them for. So Tony Todd was kind of like our big name attached to the horror genre that we could bring in. We can only afford him for a couple days. But with that, now suddenly you can stamp his face on the poster and your movie is legitimized as a viable entity in the horror world. So I remember getting a call from Chad Verdi, my producer on that project, and a gentleman who's produced quite a few of my movies, and kind of gave me my start in a lot of ways. And I remember Chad kind of contacting me and saying, "Hey, we can get Tony Todd for this part. What do you think?" And I was like, "What do I think? I'm jumping up and down, is what I think. Tony friggin' Todd. He's a
Sure.
household name." And it's kind of cool how life works, Mike, because about a year prior to that meeting with Chad, we were at a convention called Rock and Shock, promoting one of our other films. I think it might have been Infected, which was also a zombie movie. And I remember being at like a bar, one of the more prominent bars where this convention was, and partying and kind of like just having a drink and looking over to the door. And Tony Todd walks into the bar, and he looks cool as can be. What people might not realize, Tony Todd's like borderline NBA tall. Like he's 6'5". I ain't talking about, Stephen E is very tall. He's 6'1". I'm talking 6'5". Like when you're
That's
six
about
five,
it's about Michael Jordan height. It's about the height of Jordan, I think. Wasn't Jordan 6'4" or 6'5"?
Jordan was 6'6", but yeah, man,
Yeah,
throw a pair of boots on him, he's Jordan's height. So this is a large man. He's a handsome devil, a good looking guy. And he walks into the bar, I'll never forget it, he had, like, a cool jacket, he had, like, a beret that he was wearing. I'm pretty sure he was wearing sunglasses at night, which you can do if you're Tony Todd.
sure.
And may I say he was accompanied by some rather attractive folks. That's all I'm gonna say. We won't get too into it. But there were some folks that were with him that were very attractive, and there were more than one of those folks. So Tony walks in, and it's like a scene. It's like, "Whoa, holy shit, Tony Todd." And I remember just kinda chatting with him briefly at the bar, because he might have seen, like, a poster for the movie or whatever. We bullshitted for a few minutes, and that was it. And that was kind of the end of the night, so I thought. That night, guys, once in a while, the party gods come together and some party magic happens, and that was a really cool night. I was with a lot of great people, wrestling fans would appreciate it. I was rolling with Tommy Dreamer that night. I was with David Heath, aka Gangrel, just like a really group of people that I was with. And I had this like kind of epic hotel party, like for whatever reason, I ended up with like a suite because there was a few of us staying in a room. And I remember it was literally like out of a movie. And the hotel was very cool. They knew it was a convention, so the security was pretty chill that night. And I must have had 20, I'm not kidding, like 20 people in my hotel room. And they were all kind of people, like random motherfuckers that you've seen in movies because it's a movie convention. Like, for example, like, the lead from Clerks was in my room, like smoking a joint with us, like just random fucking people from pop culture all having a good time. And then, at one moment through the drinks and the craziness, I look up and I see a large 6'5" man with a beret in my room. And a couple of the folks that he was with that I recognized. And I said to myself, "Holy shit, Tony Todd's partying in my little hotel party. Like he's here. Like I'm partying with the Candyman." So before you know it, I had a few drinks and got to kind of know the guy a little bit briefly. And then, the convention ended and that was it. And in my mind, I'm like, I may never see Tony Todd again. And then sure enough, a year later, Chad tells me, "Oh, we're gonna work with this guy." So I was pretty excited, Mike, to have that little early encounter with him, an early beacon of good times to come.
I think it was, as they say in the film world, foreshadowing, Tommy, a little bit of foreshadowing that you saw Tony at this party, and then a year or so later, you're working with him, which is great.
It was really fun, and, at the time, I was playing a video game, which is very popular. There's a million different versions of it, but at the time, I'm playing Call of Duty, and Tony Todd is a character in the Call of Duty franchise in this particular game that I was playing. So I was having a blast playing this game at the time and really into it. And I remember my first conversation with Tony. He read the script and he wrote to me. And, again, he's playing like this grizzled SWAT team commander. He's a badass. He's going to go kick the shit out of these zombies. He doesn't give a fuck. They better be dead because if they're not, he's going to kill them again, kind of a guy. And he tells me on the phone, I remember I'm driving to the gym. It's funny how like you remember where you were when you have these conversations. I'm like driving to the gym. It's early in the morning. And he's like, "Hey Tom, yeah, listen, I read the script. I like it. Reminds me of that video game shit I just did." And it's so funny to me because as a fanboy, I'm like, that video game shit. Wait a minute. You're talking about Call of Duty. You're comparing my script Call of Duty? This is amazing. So I was so stoked to like even be in the same sentence as Call of Duty. Because if you're a Call of Duty fan, you probably remember there's a whole like zombie storyline too, where like, we gotta fight zombies and all this shit. So it was very much kind of one of the games that inspired me to write this movie. So it was perfect. And I knew that I had Tony Todd for I want to say we had him for 2 days, Mike. It was a quick mission, man. 2 days in and out. Um, but he eventually came to set and we had a lot of fun. So that was our first little call there.
What was that process like with working with him once you guys were actually on set? How'd that go?
Well, it was kind of interesting because, he was one of the only actors in that movie that had in their contract that they needed a trailer. That was worked into the deal. And I remember in my mind, we're shooting the movie at my parents' house, right? This was one that, my parents allowed me to make a movie in the backyard kind of a deal and really take over the whole house. So I remember thinking like, shit, what am I gonna do with this trailer? How am I gonna put this trailer down? Now, listen, I'm not saying that Tony was like a prima donna and needed all these things and demanded a trailer. That's just in his contract. That's like part of his deal. Um, so I remember like asking my neighbors, like, "Hey, is it okay if I park a trailer on your lawn for 2 days just so that I can give the Candyman a place to stay for a couple
Yeah.
days?"
Yeah.
And they were like, "Yeah, sure, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Just drop it down right on the property line there. We'll be fine." So it was pretty cool, man. Tony was kind of chilling right on set but basically on the property line, like where my neighbor's backyard and my backyard kind of meet. We had him right there, and couldn't have been more gracious. It's hard to find military boots for a man like Tony Todd because he's 6'5", and I wanna say, Mike, no bullshit, and I still have them. I kept them. Like, I'll keep some random pieces of memorabilia, and this was a weird thing to keep, and I think it was more just like I kept it because a bunch of storage shit was together, and then I ended up just kinda being like, "Oh, wow, you know what this is?" But Tony Todd's boot is a size 17.
Wow.
It's this fucking big.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, seeing the boot among the other boots and be like, "Oh, wow." I'm holding it like this. I'm like, "Oh, this is Tony's boot." So I saved Tony's boot. So, hey, any horror collectors out there, make me an offer. Maybe we can make a deal. I got Tony Todd's boot, screen worn, authentic. But yeah, I like to do that. I like to save a little piece of something. So that was that. He was really cool, Mike. And one thing that I really liked about him was I thought this was unique, and I wasn't quite sure how to take it at the time. But looking back, it was kind of unique. The character smoked cigarettes in the movie because again, he's like this old grizzled kind of guy. And I want to say Tony may have smoked at the time, but I think he was trying to quit. And he actually asked me, it's kind of funny, man. Like vapes were still relatively new at the time. This is going back to like probably, I don't know, 2013, 2014. So vapes were kinda new. Wasn't really a common thing to see a vape. You knew
Sure.
what they were, saw people fuck around with them, but it wasn't like today where you can get a vape in every store and every kid's vaping and everything else. So I remember he said, he said, "Tom, instead of a cigarette, what do you think about this?" And I didn't even know what it was. He's like, "What?" He's like, "I'm gonna vape, like a little vape thing." Almost like this character is like, "Well, I like to smoke, but I wanna stay alive as long as I can to kill whatever is fucking with people." Like, I gotta stay alive to I gotta be a little healthier because I gotta keep myself here longer to protect the people. And I thought it was cool, and obviously his idea had a part 2 because eventually, spoiler alert, Tony becomes one of them. He turns and he becomes basically a zombie. And his big idea was, and this will pay off because at the end, when I'm a zombie, I'll just kind of like walk around like with the vape in my mouth and kind of like randomly be vaping. And I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. I like that idea. That's cool. So you love when real deal actors can read a script and just find something that's not even on the page and just add that little bit of nuance that makes it different. That was a really cool thing that Tony did.
Yeah, I mean, when you have actors that are so experienced and seasoned and they're confident in sharing ideas like that, that is great. And you're right, Tommy. It's interesting how certain things come into the, pop culture world or culture in general, and something like vaping, you wouldn't think about it, but yeah, that was kind of timely. and it does make for a good effect that he has it in the movie.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a cool little nuance, and, it wasn't a movie that took itself too seriously, so, yeah, why not have a zombie that's vaping his ass off? But, yeah, Tony was terrific to work with during this movie, and I remember in terms of, like, a lot of actors, like, there's always the extracurricular world, like, where do you send them on their night off? Like, where do they wanna eat? Is there a steakhouse they like? Is there what is it that they're into? And I remember Tony was a card player. I wanna say poker. I wanna say he was a poker player. And I remember at the time, he was excited because he had, like, a night off. One of the days he had to work during the day, but then he had, like, the whole night off. And he was all excited to tell me that, basically, Mike, it looks like we froze here. Can you still see me, buddy?
I see you. You're frozen. I'm moving around on my end, so we can just keep talking. Hopefully, it'll even out in the broadcast.
Okay, yeah, so I hope we come back from this frozen land. Actually, you know what, Mike? I'm gonna step out and come back in real quick.
Hey, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. We're here on In Action. We're talking about the career of Tony Todd as the Candyman. Tommy's gone away. Here's my artwork again. MikeMessier.com. My buddy Laza wants me to remind you that I'm on Cameo now. Laza did a very nice Cameo request for me, and I'm on there. MikeMessier.com. And I'm on One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan, One Artist, Mike Messier, where you can see my art. One Man in a Camera Films, where you can see my films. We're on Tom DeNucci YouTube channel right now. And if you have any more questions, let us know. I just want to check in. Stephen E says hi. Lawrence Laza is here from Australia. And we got Scott says congrats, Tommy, on a successful film camp. Ariana Pacheco, Kim Kaling. Thanks, everybody, for helping Tommy with his film camp. And hope everyone's doing well. I did see a movie last night, the new John Cena film. I'll be talking about that on One Mike Messier, where I do Mike's Instant Film Reviews. John Cena, who's the lady from, I think she was in the show Community. What's her name? Very Allison Brie from the Glow series. She and John Cena are in this movie called Freelance, which was interesting. And what else is going on? I'm just been, working on a lot of things. Fighter play basketball. I've been entering this into some screenplay contests. This is my book that's available on Amazon, Fighter Play Basketball. A Distance from Avalon, which you should have ordered by now. It's in hardcover, collector's edition hardcover. And that's about it. Lawrence is curious if has Tommy turned into a zombie regarding his freezing. Vaping zombie, that is pretty funny. Like I said, folks, it's just so good to be discussing the films of Tony Todd. I saw on his IMDb that he was actually in the film Platoon, which is. Have you ever seen Platoon? I mean, when I was quite a young man, my father took me to see Platoon. I remember the movie was so intense. I had actually had to take a break to go to the concessions and get a Coca-Cola because I was so screwed up from watching the movie. I do remember seeing the original Candyman as well. Hardcore horror film. One of those horror films that kind of sticks with you. It's not just about, zombies killing people. It's about a real story. And like I said, folks, it is kind of a Mandela effect. Do you remember 3 times or 5 times? I clearly remember that it was just 3 times you didn't want to say Candyman, but now it's 5. The Rock, he did the Sean Connery, Nicolas Cage, Ed Harris movie. Ed Harris is always in movies like that. Night of the Living Dead, the reboot 1990, which I believe Tony actually was the star of that. This movie, 2012, I saw this movie recently on cable. Sushi Girl. Hey, Tommy, how's it going, buddy?
Oh, God, it was cold. I was frozen. I got
Y-
icicles coming off of my hair.
You're Han Solo. You're back in
Whew.
Return of the Jedi now.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for taking over. I hope I'm not interrupting anything.
I was just going through Tony's films, Tommy. Let me just finish with what I was saying. Sushi Girl is a movie from 2012 that stars Tony kind of as the final boss, and it's a really interesting kind of crime movie. And I mean, I won't give away the whole thing, but basically, there's a girl who, you ever see those like kind of things where a woman in Japan will lie down totally nude and they put sushi all over her and they eat the sushi? Well, in this particular movie, the sushi girl is actually a woman in disguise looking for revenge on the final boss, Tony Todd's character. And it's a movie that's it's R-rated, it's hardcore, it's violent.
Mike, did you mention The Rock? The Rock
I
is my
did.
favorite
I did
Tony
with Ed
Todd
Harris.
movie.
Yep. I did mention The
That's
Rock.
just a great epic action movie. And I know for a fact because I know a couple of other guys that were involved in that film. I don't know this for a fact, but I have to guess that's probably Tony Todd's biggest payday. They were just throwing money around on that film. You can imagine, Nicolas Cage, prime Nicolas Cage, like right when he's budding as a movie star, and of course Sean Connery. They were writing them big checks out for that one.
Yeah, he was
Um,
also in Platoon, and he was in the reboot, and as the star, Night of the Living Dead, a remake in 1990
right.
of the original. So he's had a great career.
He really has. So real quick, I was just saying, Tony likes the casinos, so he was really excited to find out that we have Foxwoods, we have Mohegan Sun, a couple of really great casinos, just 45 minutes to an hour down the road from Rhode Island. So Tony was in all his glory, and really everything, Mike, went without a hitch up until we had one little speed bump in the road, Mike. There was an incident involving Tony, and it was not his fault. And
Okay.
that's kind of my favorite Tony story that we're going to share today. Uh, and Mike, this was a situation where sometimes when you have a veteran actor on set who's been in, literally dozens and dozens of films and probably been part of dozens and dozens, if not 100 fight scenes and stunt maneuvers throughout a film. They're old, wily veterans, man. You ain't got to tell them anything. They know exactly what they're doing. And then sometimes when you get a young actor who's on set, and I shouldn't even say young, but maybe an inexperienced actor who hasn't done this sort of thing as much, they might go a little too hard. They might go a little too intense, especially like in the rehearsals. So this was a situation where, and I'm not going to give away any names because this person has since apologized, although it really hurt their career. Again, like this is a learning lesson for any actors out there, what I'm about to tell you. So this very kind of overzealous and overeager actor who this was probably, I think this was his second time ever speaking in a movie, gets on set and he's rehearsing with Tony and they have a fight scene and he's just going a little too hard. Like rehearsals are supposed to be like quarter speed, maybe half speed rehearsal. You're not supposed to go like full bore in rehearsal because if you're gonna get hurt, save it for the take. What are you going so fast for? Well, this actor was going a little too hard. Tony didn't really like that. And I remember Tony kind of told him a couple times, like, as we're working the beats. And if you don't know, if you've never been involved in a fight scene, it's by the numbers. So a lot of times the stunt coordinator will call out numbers like, okay, one, boom, high block, high punch. Two, low block, low punch. Three, boom. So the coordinator's calling out the numbers. And the eager gent is just going hard, like
Mhm.
punching as hard as he can, swinging as hard. And Tony's just kind of like, take it easy, relax, buddy, like smiling, making a joke out of it, just kind of like, all right, take it easy. And not only is the guy going hard, but he's doing the wrong things in efforts
Ooh.
to try and be so into his performance and so unbridled. He's fucking up the beats. So he's going too hard and he's not following the coordination of the stunt. So then we shoot the scene. We think we got it all under control, and he does it again. He's going a little too intense. Because remember, guys, it's a movie. The way these angles are, you'd be surprised. Like a punch this fast, which isn't as fast as I can throw, looks just as fast as the hardest punch I can throw on camera. Sometimes you can actually move too quickly for the camera, and you actually got to slow it down because you're trying to show the audience what you're doing. So this guy was just going way too fast, way too hard, way too heavy, and he's fucking up the beats. Finally, Tony's just like, whoa, like easy, buddy. It kind of like says in a nice way, like, you got to quit fucking around now. Like, someone's going to get hurt, kind of a thing. And rather than just kind of like taking it on the chin and saying, yes, Mr. Todd, I apologize, Mr. Todd. you're right. You've been doing this since the late 70s. This is my second movie. I should probably just respect and listen to you." This guy kind of took a different stance and got aggressive back to Tony and said, "Well, this is how it's supposed to go, and this is how I perform, and I'm just trying to go hard and be authentic." And so now this guy's giving Tony Todd shit, who, not for nothing, but Tony Todd's a big fella. I probably wouldn't be taking that tone with a gentleman of his stature. Um, and this guy was clearly just having a little bit of a panic attack. I think there was some emotional issues going on at the same time. And he had a little meltdown and he started yelling at Tony. And I remember our producer took him aside and gave him such a talking to. I remember watching it from afar, kind of just like watching this guy get reamed out for his disrespect of Tony. And I gotta say, this is a case where Tony is the ultimate gentleman consummate pro because a lot of veterans could have walked off set. They could have said, "Who the fuck is this guy?" They could have said, "Replace him. I'm not dealing with him. I refuse." They could have used this move. This is a move that some actors will use, and they're not wrong. They'll say, "I'm not doing this scene because I don't feel safe with this guy." They could have made it a safety thing. I'm not joking, guys.
Yeah.
Tony could have went in his trailer. He could have placed one phone call to his agent and he could have said, "Yeah, they have a guy on set who's just not fit to do this stunt scene, and I'm gonna get hurt with this guy. He's dangerous." And that would have been it. The production would have got a phone call. SAG could have called. SAG could have came down on the production and shut it down. So Tony was very cool about it, and he handled it in a very chill, kind of old school way, and just kind of stood his ground and said, "Buddy, you got to fucking relax." And I'm paraphrasing. I don't think he said those exact words, but basically, that was a case where Tony could have made that day become a shit show. He could have turned
Right.
that whole day into a shit show. And instead, he just said, "All right, calm this fucking guy down and let's get through with the scene." And that's basically what we did. The actor in question did eventually calm down and he did kind of, get through the scene. But I will say this, and this is the truth, man. And this is why you got to be careful when you're an actor. When you have these kind of awkward and uncomfortable lash out moments, when you lack professionalism, it's going to bite you in the ass because the reality is that actor never got called back to work for that production company ever again. And that production company went on to make a lot of movies. And I bet you he wishes he had that one back to handle a little differently.
It sounds like a nightmare, Tommy. And as you were telling that story, I kind of wondering, as a second time director, your first movie, I believe, was Self Storage. This is Army of the Damned. This is your second feature film. You got to tell me, buddy, how did this make you feel? I mean, I guess I'm thinking how I would feel, which is, holy God, like, am I going to go down with the ship here? Because as the director, often you do. But it had to be in my just projecting my feelings before I let you answer. I would have like a real sinking feeling in my stomach and just rage at the actor in question and just embarrassment and feeling, bad for the actor in question, but also really just feeling bad for Tony because then you feel like you're kind of bringing him into a less than standard what he's used to production, and you kind of feel, at least I would feel, hey, this guy's kind of doing us a favor by doing this lower budget film, and this is the thanks that he gets, and I want to work with this guy in the future. And now this might be I guess I would have had a whole ton of emotions, Tommy, and none of them particularly good. So now I'll let you answer the question. How did it make you feel as this was breaking down, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I was furious with the actor. I was very upset because you got to understand, this is a guy who I considered a friend at the time. I had worked with him before, both as an actor and I've directed him before, and he was a buddy of mine. And in my mind, I say to myself, like, how could you come onto my set? I'm giving you this opportunity to work with all these talented actors, and you're gonna be a problem? You're gonna be problematic on my set after giving you this fucking opportunity? It was infuriating, and I will say this, man, and feelings are feelings. I'm not gonna lie about how I felt. I never wanted to work with him ever again, and I never did work with him ever again because I don't care. And yeah, he came to my house a couple weeks later and he wanted to sit with me and he apologized, and I accept his apology, but the reality is I'm not gonna put myself in that position again where maybe something like that could happen. So, I'm not one of these people who likes to kind of ban people and put them on the never hire again list. But if you have a problem with my number one actor on the set, I'm never going to work with you again. Life's too short, and there are way too many other super talented actors that are dying to get their chance to shine. That I'd rather go with somebody who's got the great attitude. And I'll say this, for the most part, unless we're talking about the A-list actor that's going to kind of sell the movie, for lack of a better phrasing, I would almost always rather go with the B plus actor that's got a great attitude than the A plus actor that's problematic where something like this could potentially happen. Because you know what the worst part about this type of behavior is on set, Mike?
What?
It's unpredictable.
Yeah.
You can't see it coming. Like there was nothing that day that happened in the morning where I was like, "Oh, Tom's a little edgy today." Uh, oh, I think I might have just revealed his name. Well, you can go do
Well,
some.
you just meant that you felt
Yeah,
like
I'm a little.
you didn't feel a little edgy. There was nothing about your self conscious that felt edgy that might have somehow transitioned to the actors. So everything seemed fine from your point of view, Tommy's point of view.
Yeah, it was gonna be a great day, and then this person just decided to have a meltdown. So, unfortunately, it is what it is, and everybody learns, and that person had a little tough learning lesson that day. But I think we try to always pull the positives out of these situations. I think the positive there is that Tony Todd is a gracious guy and easily could have made that day a massive headache for production, and he didn't. He just, because again, I'm sure Tony's dealt with over-eager motherfuckers like this guy in the past who are just trying to make a name for themselves and look as good as they can, but what they sacrifice when they're doing that is they're actually ending up looking like a fool. So the good news is nobody actually got injured. We got through the scene, and Tony was great. Um, Tony hit it off with a lot of the people on set. Shout out to Billy V, rest in peace. Billy V is an actor who we worked with many times who uh, loved the guy. He was basically like Tony's partner in this movie, and they really hit it off. And I have a lot of fond memories thinking about Billy in this movie. And it's interesting. I like to look back at these movies. Unfortunately, uh, most of us are still all here, but it is sad once in a while when I look back at a movie I directed, 10 years ago, and a couple people, from that movie alone, there are 2 people I can think of that are no longer with us. One's Billy V, and the other is Phil "Skippy" Adams, who was a special effects artist who did a lot of special effects on that film. He actually was kind of a lifesaver on that movie, in a lot of ways. So, we shout out to those who are no longer with us that worked hard on that movie, and shout out to Tony Todd for being really gracious and just a terrific guy. And to this day, Tony and I don't hang out. We don't talk on the phone or anything like that. But, we're Twitter buddies. We're Instagram buddies. He'll occasionally like one of my posts. I'll like his stuff. So it's nice to have that relationship. And, I always tell people this. You know what a good relationship with an actor is? When you're friends with an actor? If something were to come up, you could call them up, you could contact them, and they're going to get back to you. And that's really all you're looking for. You're not looking for a Christmas card. You're not looking for a, "Hey, Tommy, how are you?" I don't, I'm not going to say I don't give a shit. It's just that like life is intense and
Sure.
everyone's got a lot going on. There's a lot of, things to juggle, elements to throw in the air and catch. So we can't always expect everyone to be best friends. It's just hard to maintain these kind of relationships. But if you can years later pick up the phone and call the person and they'll get back to you in a timely manner, you won. That's all you're trying to do as a filmmaker.
Hey, Tommy, let me jump into that story a little bit and just not that particular situation, but I think this is what can kind of happen. We all kind of have, at least I do, I'll just say for myself, we all kind of have this feeling of expectation of what the world should recognize our greatness. You should recognize me that I have these great skills as an actor or a writer or whatever. And when the world doesn't necessarily acknowledge your own sense of prestige, there's kind of a culture shock. And then when you're actually on a film set, which could in some ways propel your career, sometimes that inner dialogue in your head is saying, well, I deserve this, and this should even be bigger than what it is. And that mindset doesn't always mesh with the reality of the situation. People are here to work hard. We're shooting this movie in a guy's house, his family's house. The neighbors are letting the trailer of the star, go on their property. So a lot of people are making sacrifices that aren't necessarily about any one particular supporting star. It's about the production as a whole. And so sometimes, Tommy, for me, the lesson is, as actors on the rise, or as anybody on the rise, keep it in perspective that although your life is all about you, everybody else's life is not all about you or your career or your expectations for where you deserve to be or where you think you should be. I think, Tommy,
Yeah,
the problem.
don't be a selfish actor, is I think what you're saying. You know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just, or it could be anything really, a writer, whatever. But a lot of times people seem to think that they're the center of the universe. Well, you might be the center of your universe, but the guy down the street is the center of his universe. The lady working at the post office, she's the center of her own universe. She's got kids to deal with. So I think people just, especially actors, I hate to say it, you have to take a step back from that ego, and the world is not just waiting for your performance. It's got other things to do today.
That is a fact. I think a lot of people, in the entertainment world have their egos a little bit out of check. Guys, look at this nuclear blast that's happening with this
Yeah,
sunlight.
man.
It's like I'm being taken into the afterlife here. I'm calling from heaven right now. I've been taken my soul. All right, so guys, that's about it on Tony Todd. We're gonna kind of wrap it up. Tony's a great actor, terrific, legendary presence on screen. A large human being who carries himself with a gentle disposition, who is just iconic on the screen, and I'm very happy that uh, I can say that I worked with a true horror icon. I've been lucky in my career. I've worked with Freddy Krueger, I've worked with Jason, I've worked with the Candyman. I've got the chance to work with a lot of these kind of horror icons that I grew up geeking out to and loving as a kid. So it's been a fun run, especially for a horror movie lover like myself. Um, Guys, before we go today, I just want to drop a couple things down. I'm very excited about something that I'm heading to do on Wednesday. Wednesday night is the premiere for a movie that I was in called Secrets at the Museum, which will be airing on LMN. That's the Lifetime Movie Network. Going to be airing Thursday night at 8 p.m. It's called Secrets at the Museum. So check your DVRs and set them. Go find Secrets at the Museum. It's playing 8 o'clock this Thursday. And the fun thing about that is I play a detective in this movie. And guys, a little secret, I have a totally different hair vibe in this movie. I play a detective and they wanted me to be a little older in this film, so I went with a whole head of gray hair. So you're gonna see a silver fox Tommy DeNucci in this film. If that's not worth watching alone, I don't know what is. But you can check that movie out. It also stars Chelsea Vale. It stars Jonathan Lipnicki, who, if you don't know who that is offhand, he was the adorable little kid in Jerry Maguire. He was the cute kid from Stuart Little. Really big child acting career, and he's a terrific actor to this day, and a great Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist as well. He's in the movie. Glenn Ciano directed the film, great friend of mine. And it was produced by Chad Verdi Jr. and Paul Luba and David Gear, Chelsea Vale. So really cool home team kind of crew on this one. And yeah, I'm right in the mix, kind of trying to put together the pieces, Mike. I'm on a case. I'm a detective. I'm trying to put the clues together and come to a solution. And I can't wait. So that's Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on the LMN Lifetime Movie Network.
Secrets of the Museum, correct?
Nope, secrets at the museum, Mike. They're at the
Secret
museum, these
at
secrets.
secrets at the museum, 8 p.m. Lifetime Movie Network.
Yes, that's so there's actually two Lifetime channels, and most of your cable packages will have both, but there's Lifetime, and then there's the Lifetime Movie Network, aka they call it LMN for short. So it'll be on LMN. Check it out. And if you can't find it, just search Secrets at the Museum in your DVR search button. It'll come up. You'll see it. And hit the Bad Boys theme from Cops. Bad boys, what you want to do? And I'm
Hey,
going to be
Tommy,
getting up in there.
I know you want to wrap things up, but do you want to blaze through some of the comments? Because we did have a lot of people comment today, and I don't think we got to any
Yeah,
of them.
let's get through that. Before I turn into a goddamn nuclear explosion over here.
Yeah.
Backing it up. So we're happy to hear that Kim's feeling a little bit better. Love to hear that. Out of the
Yep.
woods. Scott, what's up, brother? Shout out to Scott. Scott is our friend from across the ocean. He says, Tommy, congrats, Tommy, on a successful film camp. Thank you, Scott. It really, like I said, man, just could not have gone without a hitch. Stephen E., it was great to see you the other day. What is he saying? Cabrini Green, where the premiere was based out of, torn down. Cabrini Green was also the backdrop for the
I,
TV show Good Times. What?
I think
Not sure what
he's
that one
speaking of. I believe he's speaking of Candyman. The actual movie
Okay,
takes
and
place in Cabrini
so
Green.
let's see. He says they say it 5 times at the end of the original movie, but 3 times was used earlier in the first film. We're gonna have to get to
Yeah,
the bottom of that. And
it's
actually,
a
fans,
yeah.
if you happen to watch the Candyman, I want to know the original. Is it 3? Is it 5? Are they implanting new memories? Look at this. I'm coming from a cave now, guys.
This is
A
scary. Yeah.
a cavern. I'm in the goddamn cavern. All right, Laza from Australia, our dear friend. He says he remembers watching the Candyman growing up. Ariana says Viola Davis came out of Trinity. That's probably one of the more talented names, if not the most talented name to come out of Trinity. I believe, I don't know that any other Trinity rep actors have an Oscar, and I'm pretty sure Viola Davis does have an Oscar to her credit. Um, I don't listen to the soft shit. Oh yeah, that's from The Rock. I fucking love The Rock. Talk about just a classic action movie. Um, when you're putting together your film clamp, when are you putting together your film clamp online for people to watch? Uh, when would people watch it? I hope in about 4 weeks, Mike. I think in 4 weeks, Lazo, we're gonna have that up. Monique Dupree, the younger sister of Tony Todd, has done some films with Trauma, which is pretty cool. I've done some films with Monique Dupree. Monique Dupree is a very nice person and a terrific, talented actor. And I miss Monique. I haven't seen her in a while, but yeah, Monique's great. A Vaping Zombie, that's pretty funny. We know you love all the classic war movies, Laza. We know. We love them too. Platoon's a great one, but I'm a big fan of First Blood, Rambo. Love that. Um, let's see. Sean Connery, of course, is in The Rock. Let's see. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. I am shining like a diamond. It's been really great kind of chatting with you. We missed you last week. Remember, if you haven't already, please pop over and subscribe to my channel. That's Tom DeNucci Film on YouTube. Also, guys, check out my new show, Rushmore, which I'm doing with Theo Rossi and Demetria Steer. It's a ranking show where we rank the top 4 everything in pop culture. I'm going to need a pair of shades here to keep doing this show.
You're gonna need
But
those sunglasses a day, buddy. Gee whiz.
seriously, but we really do appreciate you hanging with us. Go check out Mike's artwork. Go check out all of his YouTube channels. He's got a few of them for you. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you next week, guys. Next week, I really want you all to go and watch Secrets at the Museum this week. Check it out. It's going to air a couple times over the weekend because next week's topic is going to be all about Secrets at the Museum. That's what we're going to get into. We're going to do a deep dive. I'm going to tell you some stories from set, and we're going to talk about the movie. So your homework for this week is to watch Secrets at the Museum on the Lifetime Movie Network. That's going to be airing Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And next week, we'll be right here talking all about it. I hope to see you there.
Goodbye.